Hello, everyone. It's good to be back. Um, I do apologize for the amount of time that I took off. There are just some personal things that I had to take care of, but after prayer and contemplation, the Lord has brought me back, thankfully. Um, so while I took my break, I did some thinking, nothing incredibly bad has happened to me or anything. So I appreciate, the support of my subscribers and just the general traffic that this channel has been receiving. But God has called me back again just for informational purposes. It's not like I'm some guru. I am not a theologian. I'm none of these things. I am simply a person that I believe Christ has called and given certain talents, mainly the talents of, like some of you possess, is just the ability to find certain things that aren't taught in the churches. I have spoken about this briefly, but in reality, I think we all know that the churches of today are dead and stagnant. They have no discernment. They don't know what's going on above perhaps maybe a local level. And worse yet is that most of the pastors, I use that term loosely, and the corporations are complicit in the atrocities committed today. So, of course, you're not going to hear certain things that are going on in the world. So, let me get to the point of the video. The point of the video, one that I have not done, or this topic that I haven't shared, is October 18th, 2019, the day in which the pandemic forgot. And I have to be careful because of the AI, but I just recently found out about this date, and it's a very important date. Why is that? So we're going to be taking a look at that. Basically, what happened on October 18th, 2019 was a little event called Event 201. We're going to be spending a little bit of time just covering this, and we are going to start to see how things have been planned. Now, people have come on, they have said certain things, they have postulated, they have hypothesized, they have given their own explanation. Most of us can see the writing on the wall, but where has this come from? This is the important question that really I haven't seen a whole lot of people get to. And I found this, and I'll share this. I found this from a wonderful video, a very wonderful video, just about following the money. So, Event 201, what happened? What was it about? Well, first of all, we have to keep this date in context. October 18th, 2019. 2019, of course, being the year before 2020, where everything, quote unquote, fell apart. And there's a lot of people that have covered those topics, but if we can link that there was somehow a exercise, if there was somehow a planning that was going on before, we could start to see quite startlingly how complicit truly our governments are, and how it's just confirmation once again how we're just along for the ride. Well, let's get to it. Event 201 was a 3.5 hour pandemic tabletop exercise that simulated a series of dramatic, scenario-based, facilitated discussions confronting difficult, true-to-life dilemmas associated with response to a hypothetical, of course hypothetical, but scientifically plausible pandemic. Again, keep the date in mind. They were talking about this in October of 2019. This is not October 2020. This is certainly not April of 2021. We are talking about something that was discussed in 2019. So the purpose of this was to basically map out what would happen during a hypothetical pandemic. Okay, sounds very kind of them to do this for us, to plan for this and to see what would happen. All right, so what's the purpose? And I'll provide links to that because I'm not going to read every word, obviously, but just enough to get the point across. Purpose. In recent years, the world has seen a growing number of epidemic events amounting to approximately 200 events annually. I don't know what they categorize as epidemic events. They leave that out, or that's buried somewhere in the facts. These events are increasing and they are disruptive to health, economies, and society. I think we know who's really disruptive, but that's for another video. Managing these events already strains global capacity, even absent a pandemic threat. So it just sounds like they're not so much planning for a pandemic, but itching for one. Experts agree that it is only a matter of time before one of these epidemics become global. A pandemic with potentially catastrophic consequences, a severe pandemic which becomes Event 201, would require reliable cooperation among several industries, national governments, and key international institutions. So you can see the framework, what they're building up towards, what they're trying to show, what they're trying to convey, what they were trying to plan for, and all this would be something that would be difficult to see in 2019. But now that we're in 2021, this is actually kind of tragic and sad that our world leaders went down this route. But recent economic studies show that pandemics will be the cause of an average annual economic loss of 0.7% of global GDP. They were well off on that. When you just shut down the economy, it's actually much worse. Scenario, so we got a link. I believe I have that pulled up in a separate tab. Again, you have to keep this in mind. This happened in 2019. Do not forget that throughout this video. It's very important. The next severe pandemic will not only cause great illness and loss of life, but could also trigger major cascading economic and societal consequences that could contribute greatly to global impact and suffering. Boy, indeed. You guys said it best yourselves. So a call to action. The next severe pandemic will not only cause great illness and loss of life, but could also trigger major cascading economic and societal consequences that could contribute greatly to global impact and suffering. My, that sounds exciting. The Event 201 pandemic exercise conducted on, once again, October 18, 2019, vividly demonstrated a number of these important gaps in pandemic preparedness, as well as some of the elements of the solutions between the public and private sectors that will be needed to fill them. Here's an important note, too, and we'll scroll down to the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security World Economic Forum at Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation jointly proposed the following. How very kind of them. Governments or non-government organizations, NGOs, that we, as I can speak specifically for Americans, but I pretty much I can't do that. I won't speak for the entire world. Basically, what I'm getting at is, as countries, we have our own laws and we have our responsibilities to those countries, and whatever constitution, whatever Bill of Rights, apologies if you call it differently in your country. I'm just using the American verbiage as an example. We are citizens of a specific state. We are not citizens of Earth. I am a citizen of the United States of America. You may be a citizen of Canada. We are not a citizen of Earth. But that's obviously what we have to, in reality, at the end of the day, we were just pawns of certain agencies, as we all know. So number one, governments, international organizations, and businesses should plan now for how essential corporate capabilities will be utilized during a large-scale pandemic. Allowing Amazon, Walmart, your global corporations that I just found out recently, and I'll share a link to this video as well. I believe she's from the Netherlands. She did a fantastic video about where all this money is going. Basically showed that there are two main groups that basically own pretty much everything. We're talking textiles, media, food, entertainment. It comes down to BlackRock and the Vanguard Group. Again, separate topic for a separate video, but I continue. Number 2, industry. National governments and international organizations should work together to enhance internationally held stockpiles of medical countermeasures to enable rapid and equitable distribution during a severe pandemic. Of course, how kind of them. Countries, international organizations, and global transportation companies should work together to maintain travel and trade during severe pandemics. These things tend to change. I think that most of us could agree that they just, well, my own opinion and the way I saw it was they shut down mom and pop shops. You can't have the slightest bit of competition while you allowed Walmart and others to remain open and therefore continue your trade. So yeah, I guess, yeah. Government should provide more resources and support for the development and surge manufacturing of vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics that will be needed during a severe pandemic. Cool. Global business should recognize the economic burden of pandemics and fight for stronger preparedness. Well, they certainly did that now, did they? International organizations should prioritize reducing economic impacts of epidemics and pandemics. Governments and the private sector should assign a greater priority to developing methods to combat mis- and disinformation prior to the next pandemic response. My. We're using them. Google Corporation, actually, that's not true. They're actually a subsidiary of the Alphabet. Is it Alphabet Company or Alphabet Group? Alphabet. They basically own Google, YouTube, and so forth. So, with the help of Google, Facebook, Twitter, basically filter opinions that you don't want, and of course provide opinions that you want to go forth. Resources. So if I go back here, I forget which, you can click the links here and it'll basically take you to where I'm filtering through now. They have a list of recommendations here that we'll briefly cover, but I have a lot of fact sheets here. The first one we're going to be looking at is CAPS, the pathogen and clinical syndrome. I believe it's this one. CAPS antiviral, in addition to vaccines, monovalent antibody therapies, and antivirals have been investigated for treating coronavirus infections. In this scenario, extranaver, and please forgive me if I screw up the pronunciation of well, just forgive me for my not good ability to speak, is a fictional antiviral drug. Current vaccine. There are no vaccines currently licensed and available for use against any coronavirus. Coronavirus vaccines for SARS and MERS have been technically challenging to develop and have not made it out of clinical trials. It's very important. That little detail, have not made it out of clinical trials, is was very startling to me when I read this. Again, 2019 is when this was published and when this 3.5-hour exercise was performed. You look at Operation Warp Speed. You look at the stuff that we were told in 2020. You know, it was a rush. You know, we got to get this out. It's emergency use. It's all these different things. And we're looking at the documentation, and they give us sources down below, 1 through 3. Oh, that's interesting. Won't try to pronounce it, but that's very interesting. Again, interesting. And yes, the number 3 reference is the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, vaccines licensed for use in the United States. Vaccine blood biologics, vaccine license use. This is just incredible stuff. This is why I wanted to share this with you guys, because I found this so troubling. Going back up, current vaccines in development. While scientists are researching a vaccine against the fictional CAPS virus, there is currently no product in development. Development of a vaccine against the CAPS virus will likely take years to achieve. The vaccine development process can take more. Sorry, I've glanced at some of the stuff, so if I pause, I don't mean to have dead air. Some of this stuff takes me aback, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. In pandemic situations, the timeline for vaccine development could possibly be shortened, but developing and manufacturing a vaccine against CAPS in time to control this pandemic is unlikely. Well, they just went with, well, we'll just put one out. Vaccines against SARS or MERS coronaviruses would likely not be protective against CAPS because coronaviruses are prone to genetic reassortment. Therefore, a vaccine against one coronavirus is not cross-protective against another coronavirus. Some experts have raised the possibility that immunity incurred from certain coronavirus vaccines can be short-lived. Of course, we hear that all the time today. And that enhanced disease may result from certain coronavirus vaccines. This has prompted some concern that vaccines targeting coronaviruses could lead to adverse effects. You think? There's a little table there. Current medical countermeasure distribution allocation systems. We read about that, or we heard about that last year. Current supply chain mechanisms exist to distribute vaccines and other medical countermeasures on a routine basis. However, a centralized and scalable MCM distribution system for use during pandemics does not exist. You just use the military. You guys figured that one out. Medical countermeasure. So anyways, you can go over that. Communication in a pandemic. This one was very fascinating. Sorry. A little jumpy all over the place here. Pandemic emergency financing facility. Oh, let me see if I can find... Here is basically the model of what this Event 201 is, and does not relate to and cannot be applied to. Well, you can go. This is all CAPS, the pathogen, the fictional coronavirus acute pulmonary syndrome is an acute respiratory infection that can progress to pneumonia and acute respiratory distress syndrome and is caused by a swine origin coronavirus. 2011, 2012, ring a bell for anybody? And we will take a look at a video. It's disgusting, but you'll see that shortly. There is no licensed vaccine for any coronavirus, although some are in development for SARS and MERS. There is no antiviral drug with an indication for coronavirus treatment, although there are several drugs, including anti-HIV drugs, that might be effective. In this scenario, there is one fictional HIV antiviral, extranavir, that may be effective for treatment or prophylaxis of CAPS. It's just sickening. If you don't... Okay, let's take a break from this real quick. If you don't understand what's going on, why am I doing this? I am sharing with you information. This is all public. This is all released online. This is not a theory. I am not coming up with my own Word documents and proposing that they conducted some type of pandemic war game behind the scenes. They are telling you that they conducted a pandemic war game back in 2019. This is not shared. And furthermore, you'll find information that they are basically admitting some of the viruses, if we go back here, again, they are saying themselves that vaccine against a coronavirus is highly unlikely to actually work. They had vaccines and clinical trials. They are telling you this in these documents. It's absolutely insane what they're doing. Communication in pandemic. Effective communication during public health events can be critical to public health response efforts. Public health messages help inform the public about risks and protective actions, and done correctly are a critical component of community engagement and the buildup of public trust. Yet true information about public health concerns is increasingly competing with false messages that can damage public confidence in health interveners and health authorities. See, skeptics like me, I know, crazy. How could I be a skeptic when we've got such benevolent leaders controlling the world? Perhaps don't run a war game, a pandemic war game, 6 to 8 months before an outbreak. That might help. That might help with your competitive, or the competition of false messages. Over the past 15 years, there have been a global surge in the adoption of social media technologies. In 2019, 6 social media companies had more than 1 billion active monthly users. So, of course, we saw the takedown Facebook, Google, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. I don't have social media, but I read the reports of Facebook actively taking stuff down. So we know what happens, and who decides what's truth? Well, who watches the watchers? If you don't understand that reference, basically what it's saying is you need some kind of public scrutiny, and we're not getting it because we won't get it because we're not made to get it. Disinformation campaigns are widely recognized in the political world, but have been identified in the public health realm as well. In the fall of 2018, a team of researchers systematically identified a concerted effort to spread disinformation and discord about vaccine safety. That's interesting. Public health response efforts for the currently ongoing Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo has been challenged by disruptive rumors that have occasionally targeted public health responders. I mean, Dr. F, anybody? I mean, again, 2019, remember that. All the time you're going through this. The next pandemic is out there. Is the private sector ready? This is just from a link. Late in summer 2019, a virus makes the leap from pigs in South America to the farmers who come into close and regular contact with them. It begins as a slow burn in Brazil. By October, it is gaining momentum and becomes known to the world. The virus is called CAPS, a coronavirus like SARS or MERS that has never been seen before. It causes pneumonia and acute respiratory illness. In the most severe cases, liquid fills the lungs until breathing becomes labored or impossible. The World Health Organization responds on average to, again, what's their definition of an epidemic? I haven't found it yet. CAPS isn't a real virus yet. It certainly is now. And this is not the world we live in, but it is perhaps the world next door. Give it 6 to 8 months and you'll find out. Testing global pandemic preparedness with Event 201 beneath the chandeliers and sconces of the Pierre Hotel against a painted Palazzo backdrop of fake fountains and statuary with the Pillar of Death. They gather representatives from a vast array of private and public entities. With no current global pandemic plan in place, situations like Event 201 are crucial for teasing out insights toward preparing for a major pandemic. How do we allocate limited medical and financial resources? How do we balance the risks and benefits of trade and travel? And how do we battle misinformation and disinformation, from innocent mistakes to conspiracies to propaganda? This is back in 2019. This is before the coronavirus. They planned for this Event 201. They had this. They executed it. They prepared for it. It's all right here. Statement about NCOV and our pandemic exercise. In October 2019, the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security hosted a pandemic tabletop exercise called Event 201 with partners, the World Economic Forum, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Recently, the Center for Health Security has received questions about whether that pandemic exercise predicted the current novel coronavirus outbreak in China. To be clear, the Center for Health Security and Partners did not make a prediction during our tabletop exercise. Of course they did. We just reviewed that. But they had to cover for it because people started noticing. Oh no, we didn't talk about a novel coronavirus back in 2019 that later happened. No, don't pay any attention to us. And again, this is about the event. Provide the links below. This all happened in 2019. It's very startling. Who is the audience? I guess we can cover that last. An invitation-only audience of nearly 130 people attended the exercises, and a live stream of the event was available to everyone. Video coverage is available here. Again, Johns Hopkins, Bloomberg School of Public Health, the World Economic Forum, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They covered it. They planned for it. They wanted it aired. Lastly, this was the video I found. It's called Monopoly Follow the Money. Well done by a girl from the Netherlands. Very well done, tracking basically all of our... just watch the video for yourself. In 45 minutes, she does a very concise job of pinning our media, food, entertainment, hygiene products. Every single major corporation, including Coke and Pepsi, are owned by two primary groups, those being BlackRock and the Vanguard Group Industries. Anyways, enjoy the short clip of how they basically conned their way through the swine flu.
Van Ranst explains how he misled the people during the swine flu. He triggered fear by death numbers without context and media manipulation. He laughs as he tells how he made sure that the vaccines of the pharmaceutical companies he was working for then were accepted by many fearful people.
To tell you about my experiences being the crisis manager, the flu commissioner for Belgium and highlighting the communication aspects there. And then you have one opportunity to do it right. I mean, day one is so important. In day one, you start your communication with the press, with the people, and you have to do it right. I mean, you have to go for one voice, one message. In Belgium, they chose to appoint a non-politician to do that. I mean, I have no party affiliations, and that makes things a little bit, at that time at least, a little bit easier, because you're not attacked politically, majority, minority. That doesn't come into play, and that was a huge advantage. The second advantage is that you can play in Brussels the complete naive guy and get a lot more done than you would otherwise be able to do. You have to be omnipresent that first day or the first days, so that you attract the media attention. You make an agreement with them that you will tell them all, and if they call, you will pick up the phone. When you do that, then you can profit from these early days to get complete carpet coverage of the field, and they're not going to search for alternative voices there. And if you do that, that makes things a lot easier. And then you have to say, okay, well, we will have H1N1 deaths. Of course, that would be unavoidable. I used there Sir Donaldson's quote, where he said that in the UK, by the peak of the epidemic, 40 people would die per day at the end of the summer. So 62 at that time million people in UK, 40 deaths a day. I worked it out for Belgium. That would be 7 deaths a day at the peak of the epidemic. I used that in the media. 7 Belgian flu deaths per day at the peak of the epidemic would be realistic. That is true in every year, even interpandemically. That is very, very conservative. However, talking about fatalities is important, because when you say that, people say, wow, what do you mean? People die because of influenza? And that was a necessary step to take. And then, of course, a couple of days later, you had the first H1N1 death in the country, and the scene was set and it was already talked about. And then you had to pick who is going to be vaccinated first. Huh? And then, well, women and children first, whatever. I mean, risk groups, they were important. And then I misused the fact that the top football, soccer clubs in Belgium inappropriately and against all agreements vaccinated they made their soccer players priority people. So I said I can use that. Because if the population really believes that this vaccine is so desirable that even the soccer players would be dishonest to get their vaccine, I said, okay, I can play with that. So I made a big fuss about this. This is Van Ranst is raving mad. But it worked.
We could talk for hours about the virus of which...
Yeah, so there you have it. She did a wonderful video. Let me try to see if I can. There you have it. Event 201. They're lying to us. They're telling us many things that aren't true. They are gaslighting us into doing things that we don't want to do. They are using fear and manipulation to drive this thing. They planned for this. They predicted it. And they want... I think we know what they want. But history is unfolding. And unfortunately, like it or not, we're a part of it. So I'm just warning you, pray in the name of Lord Jesus Christ to protect you, and may He open all of our eyes to what's really going on. And yes, we may be persecuted, and yes, we may be blamed for everything being unjabbed. And no, I'm not certainly that crowd that would insist that this particular is a certain mark. I am not of that group. But I think most of us can look around and see, other than the 501c3 corporations that are actually selling the jab, what it really is. Thank you all. God bless and Godspeed.